Okay, before we get to some news stories, let's do this.
Greg's Leftovers.
Yes, it is Leftovers, where I read the jokes we didn't use this week. And just like when Greg does it, it's my first time reading them. So if they suck, we'll treat Joe Mackey with the respect he deserves for working so hard for this show. Hey! All right. A new CNN poll says that half of Americans don't have any political news source they trust. The other 50% don't believe the poll. The world's oldest living land animal, a tortoise named Jonathan, extended his record to 194 years. And in second place, you guessed it. You did. You did guess it. Ilhan Omar attacked Jerry Seinfeld over his comment saying Palestine doesn't exist. And Seinfeld responded, "What's the deal with marrying your brother?" Over 7,000 suspected ghost students, which are people who take taxpayer funds for college, then never show up, were found in Minnesota. Boy, ghost kids grow up so fast. Seems like just yesterday they were in daycare. In a recent interview, Hunter Biden said that nobody really understood his father. And then Joe mumbled something inaudible in agreement. In movie news, Tom Cruise has signed to star in Top Gun 3. In this one, Maverick faces a stunning realization that he's eligible for pre-boarding. Major League Baseball criticized San Francisco Giants players for writing Bible verses on Pride Night hats. The MLB said all prayers should be reserved for the Mets. Come on. Seattle Socialist Mayor Katie Wilson announced the city will no longer tolerate public drug sales. She encouraged dealers to use Zelle, Cash App, or Venmo. A 96-year-old man has reportedly hired a matchmaker and has gone on a number of dates. He said he's looking for that special someone to spend the rest of his week with. At the G7 summit, President Trump complimented Indian Prime Minister Modi, calling him the most beautiful-looking man. Many people think Trump was just buttering him up so he could ask, "Can you please fix my printer?" Many people. And finally, a man who legally changed his name to Barack D. Obama announced he's running for California governor. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to see his birth certificate. So, I spent some time this week listening to Democrats talk about Donald Trump, and it's clear after all these years, they still have no idea who he is. One minute, he's a frail old man who can barely stand up, and the next minute, he's a criminal mastermind capable of destroying democracy, all while calmly stroking a white cat like a Bond villain. Listen to Rosie O'Donnell talking to former CNN bozo Jim Acosta about Trump's health.
I really think he is very addled with dementia, frontal temporal lobe dementia. It's very obvious. You talk to any doctor of his merit, that's what they say. And, you know, how much more do we need to see before we realize that this is what's actually happening? And it's our responsibility to do something.
Remember, though, Rosie's not a doctor. She just plays an idiot on TV. But she says it's very obvious. Okay, that's weird, because this week she also talked to former presidential hopeful and practicing Wiccan priestess Marianne Williamson and claimed he's got some master plan to cancel the midterms.
Also a very serious and sober moment, because at the same time the people are revving up for the midterms, they are revving up as well for an obvious rigging of this election.
Not only a rigging, but I think he will have some sort of crisis, whether it's an assassination attempt or a terrorist bombing. There will be some catastrophic event, and he will say there will be no elections.
The only catastrophic event of that magnitude would be Rosie's return to The View. And you know who agrees with her? The voices in her head. But what a stupid contradiction. First, he's too senile to find the remote, but then He's sharp enough to pull off a grand scheme like we've never seen before? That'd be one hell of a doctor's report. Then there's Louisiana Lizard King James Carville. Last week, he predicted that Trump will be leaving office by spring, and after people called him out for saying that just to get clicks, he's doubling down.
I'm sticking with my prediction. I think the son of a bitch is just going to walk away. He's going to walk away because the pain that is coming for him, both the emotional pain and the physical deterioration, you watch it right in front of your eyes. I don't have to be a doctor to see this guy can't move. He can't get out of a chair. I know what it's like to be in the 80s. And unlike a lot of people, I know what that job is like. And it's not compatible. Maybe there's some people 80 could do that. He's not one.
James would have said more, but he had to return to the swamp to search for more fresh flies. And the Democrats in Congress sound just as foolish. During the Massachusetts Senate debate, Congressman Seth Moulton said this.
The single best thing that anyone can do to help Americans, to help working families, to help people struggling in Massachusetts just to afford filling up at the pump, the single best thing that anyone can do is get rid of Donald Trump.
The second best thing anyone can do, put electrical tape over that guy's mouth. And that doesn't even make any sense. Moulton isn't running for Senate against Trump. It's just another tired Democrat playing the Trump card because they're out of ideas. So you see, they keep creating elaborate fantasies to avoid dealing with reality. Every few months, they invent a new way for Trump to disappear. But these predictions can't all exist at the same time. And that's the story here. None of these predictions have to make sense. They just have to end the same way. Trump goes away. And for years, that's been their fantasy. Well, that and open borders, defunding the police, mandatory drag queen story hours. He's going to lose or going to jail or go bankrupt or quit or cancel elections. At this point, Democrats don't have a political strategy. They have an M. Night Shyamalan screenplay with a crappy twist ending, which makes sense because for their last movie, they saw dead people. They did. Okay, Dagan, which one do you think it is? If you have to pick one, do you think they think he's too senile to get the job done, that he's incapacitated, or that he's an evil mastermind?
I think nothing of what they think. Because their thoughts about President Trump and their opinions about him have always been off base, irretrievably worthless, habitually wrong, because their opinions of themselves, how they view their own worth and place in this world, are hallucinatory and detached from any kind of reality. Look at Rosie O'Donnell. She thinks she's an important political voice. And so much so that she has to reach the masses by going on a streaming show hosted by a dude who moved on from a television network that no one was watching. But beyond that, I do not trust the judgment of Rosie O'Donnell, a woman who would have a facelift, and that's the after.
She did. She recently, yeah.
You go into a doctor and get for a facelift, and a lower lift or whatever, and did she tell the doctor, make sure that I'm still puffy and jowly when you're done?
I know.
I'm not listening to anything that she has to say about anybody.
That's it. Michael, what do you think of their, are they having delusions, or are they just kind of going for anything? They won't stop thinking about Trump. They got to do something. He's not going to run again.
I'm going to defend Rosie.
Oh, here we go.
Okay. 2006, this is what Donald Trump had to say about Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah.
Rosie's a loser. Rosie's been a loser for a long time. Her magazine failed. Her magazine, I think it was called Rosie, was a total failure. Rosie's a failure. Look, Rosie's a very unattractive woman. Rosie's a very attractive woman, but as unattractive she is on the outside, she's even worse on the inside, and she's very lucky to have a nice girlfriend. I think you better hold on to your girlfriend, Rosie, because if you lose her, you'll never be able to get another. Now, hold on. If the person who said this about you became president, wouldn't you lose your mind also? If the guy who bullied you in high school is now in the White House, wouldn't you think, all right, I'm in some acid trip that has never ended?
Yes.
So I will defend her in that regard.
But how about this, Michael? Because I watched that whole interview with Marianne Williamson. She went on to talk about how she used to make fun of Trump on her show.
Right.
She never liked him. She thought he was a loser. She thought he was crazy. He was overrated. So, you know, Trump was always, the reason he said those things, he was always responding to Rosie. And then she said how he ruined her life because she went into a sports bar with her kid and he was talking about her on the TV. But the thing is, she talked about him on the TV.
Yeah, but now she's not president. Now she's causing another famine in Ireland.
That's right. That's right. It's so true. You were just, wait a minute, you were defending her, weren't you?
Well, I'm defending why she's saying these things. If you put yourself in her shoes, which
Yes.
would be kind of hard to do in a literal sense, you'd be like, okay, this is the road to madness. She's like Harley Quinn from the Joker movies, but with, like, you know, extra 350.
Absolutely. Kat, you saw this thing with Marianne Williamson. I couldn't stop watching it because they're both kind of fascinating and interesting individuals. It's a reason why they have people watch them, because they're very watchable, but in a kind of a crazy way.
She's obviously lost her mind. I think that she knows she's losing her mind. And then I wish there was something in this video, it's not in this screen grab, that gave me hope. Certainly not this one. If you play it, you can watch, and she starts moving her hands around a little bit, and you can see on her fingers that she had a fresh manicure. I think that that's nice. I think it's nice that she went, because when you're getting your nails done, you cannot be on your phone. She cannot be reading the news when she's getting a manicure. So I would just like to encourage that. I would like to say, good job. I think you should keep up with your manicure. And have another, maybe next you do a sensory deprivation tank. Get a spray tan. Do you see that? Look, that is a fresh manicure. That is a woman who spent at least 1 hour away from her phone. That is progress. That is progress.
Rosie.
That is good. That is good. So, unless those are press-ons, in which case I take it back. But I think she should start doing more self-care types of things, because clearly it's one thing to, you know, whatever, not be a fan of the president. But for her, it's clearly a consuming thing. And she's even acknowledged that it's a thing that's consumed her life. And there's so much more to life than any one person, whether it's the president or anything else. At a certain point, you got to get out there and do other things. And it looks like she did that for at least an hour. So keep that manicure habit up.
Yes. The hands in the dryer.
You're telling Rosie O'Donnell to stop consuming? It's not going to happen.
I know, it's so true. You got to give her credit. You know what? Let's defend her again. Everyone always said they were going to, all the celebrities, I'm moving, I'm leaving the country.
She did it.
None of them did. She actually moved. Yep. Right? Rich Voss.
Where they have bad plastic surgeons.
I know. Yes.
I am so sick of that fat, skinny bitch. First of all, she lives in obscurity.
What?
I could see her in the sidecar to a motorcycle, driving to a Free Palestine rally with her skin blowing back in the wind. All right? Oh, she's gross. Look at her. That's all I got.
That's it?
That's it?
That's good enough. Listen to them.
But wait,
They love it.
I'm going to make you weigh in on the political angle of this.
What?
Democrats, what are they going to do? They will not give up on Trump, but he can't run again. What are Democrats going to do next?
Listen, probably hide their face in the sand, because they're backing the worst people on the planet. They're backing a guy in Maine, you know, that hails a cab like this when there's no cab. Okay.
Mr. Crown.
I would stop there. I would stop there. That was good.
Matter of fact, I'm done for tonight.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.